All right, so we've got a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great to have Michael here. Michael, you're the president and CEO of Greater New Orleans, which is all about building up the area and doing what you can to improve it. And you've been involved in tech and innovation and energy. I mean, there's just so many areas you've been involved in. So I'm excited to have you here and talk about your story and what you're building.
Thank you, Ben. It's great to be here. Appreciate the time.
Awesome. So you're just kind of going back in your journey, like what made you interested in this area so much and caring about it and wanting to spend your life, whether it's involved in around government efforts or just more business efforts and building up this whole community?
So I guess there's kind of two parallel stories there that, in retrospect, go together. One is that as a kid, my favorite thing to do was to build cities on my floor out of Legos and Lincoln logs and erector set and use Matchbox cars. And so I guess at an early age, I was interested in urban planning and kind of how people work together. The New Orleans thing was because my mother's side of the family, my mom's from New Orleans. I grew up in New York. My wife, who is Danish, who I met in Australia when we were living in San Francisco after we took a camping trip around North America, she said, we need to move to New Orleans because it's the only place in America you actually know where you are. And I said, well, hey, baby, that's because it's not America. It's actually the Caribbean. But anyway, we had no idea how to do it. I was working in New York City in the Bloomberg administration post 9/11, and then Katrina hit. And folks from Louisiana came to see us to understand how we access federal funds. And I let slip that my family was from Louisiana. And like 6 weeks later, I was down here on the steps with Governor Blanco announcing a $250 million CDBG program that I had no idea how to run. And that was 20 years ago. So don't try this at home, kids.
So what was it like running that program in the end?
It was a lot of lessons learned. The results worked pretty well. It was a grant and a loan program. And what we discovered is that the idea of giving people quick grants of $20,000 was really important to keeping people on payroll and helping people do the basic repairs like mucking out their businesses. And then we had a loan program where we gave loans up to $250,000. And what was really interesting about that is that the loans were not collateralized in any traditional way. They were just character loans. But there was so much pride in the small business community that the repayment rate, depending on which intermediary, which tranche, was between 92 and 94%, which is about as good performance as a commercial loan, a typical one. So there was a lot of lessons learned about getting these businesses back up because they're not only important for the economy but also for the culture and sense of identity.
So what did you do right after that?
So did that for a couple of years. Then this opportunity opened up at Greater New Orleans, Inc. I didn't realize, but the reason why I was offered the job was because nobody else wanted it. So, but I didn't find that out until a little bit after. But it's been incredibly fun and quite an honor to be able to be involved in trying to revitalize as historic and important and culturally rich a place as New Orleans in a way that honors the past but still moves the place towards the future. And the job never gets boring. Most recently, we helped run the Super Bowl 59, which was really successful. Now we're building the biggest greenfield new deepwater port in the country. It's a broad job that changes every day. And as long as we're making 2 steps forward for every 1 step back, we call that the cha-cha of progress.
What was that like with the Super Bowl? I mean, there's so much effort, so much economic growth that happens because of a Super Bowl. It's insane.
It was super fun. I guess some of the impressions of that, Ben, were, I guess one, you understand what a corporate and cultural phenomenon the NFL is. I mean, the way that things were planned down to the level of specificity and detail was extraordinary. At the New Orleans level, what was so much fun and so encouraging was we were able to do about a decade of deferred maintenance in about 9 months.
Hmm.
And so to get everybody together to execute over 1,000 projects, as small as fixing potholes to as big as helping remediate, huge blighted buildings, was a really good civic exercise. And I think it showed the community that if we work, that we don't have to settle on not being able to accomplish things, but that if we have a goal and we work together with energy, that we can have smooth streets, we can have lights that turn on at night, we can have a clean French Quarter.
Hmm.
So I think it wasn't just a great event, but it raised people's expectations about what we can, how we can look and feel as a city. So it was, I highly recommend a Super Bowl for everybody that, is looking for a good project to bring folks together.
Yeah. It sounds like it worked out well for you guys. What's it like building out a tech ecosystem? I mean, you guys have had some great exits in the area. What goes into creating a good tech ecosystem?
Man, it has been, we've had some successes. We've had, close to 2 billion of exits. We have a legitimate ecosystem now. We're currently about 33% above the national average in terms of number of startups per capita. But I got to tell you, one of the lessons that I've learned, having come down here from Brooklyn and previously been in the Bay Area, is that those cities, those places like the Bay Area or like New York or like Boston that have that critical mass of capital and companies and talent, it's really, really hard to move up into that group. There's just so much gravity in those places that even if they're more expensive and more competitive, and there's effectively or in reality a tax on being there, there's a lot of momentum. I think like even now Miami, which had this great resurgence under Mayor Suarez kind of during and after COVID, is finding that just having no taxes and parties on a boat, I mean, this year you're near there, it's not necessarily enough to jumpstart a tech ecosystem and get into that level. So we've had success. We've had particular success in video games. We do a lot of the coding for Fortnite here, for example. We've had a lot of success in defense tech that's really growing quickly right now, particularly work in maritime and drones. But it has been a slower build trying to get the critical mass of venture capital here and also trying to keep our companies here. With M&A activity and private equity activity, really going strong, there's always this phenomenon that your best companies, private ones in the PE space, obviously, can grow and then end up effectively getting taken away. And so for any community that's not one of the really big ones or one that's made it to that level, like maybe an Austin has, you're always, when you're building your tech ecosystem, you're always kind of building sandcastles at the seashore with the tide coming in. So you always got to be dumping on new money, new talent, new companies, because Silicon Valley and the Northeast are always trying to take it away. And that's just that's the nature of it.
Yeah. Well, it's good you at least have an ecosystem now. I don't think it was like that years ago, especially early 2000s.
Yeah, man, it wasn't. I mean, I was just having a coffee with Tim Williamson, who was involved in Idea Village back pre-Katrina. And what he was talking about, and I think it's pretty convincing because the data support it, is that, pre-Katrina, New Orleans was kind of going like this. And so they started efforts like Idea Village to make entrepreneurship sexy in a traditional conservative business culture. Then Katrina happened, and I think what we saw with Katrina is that necessity is the mother of invention. So we became very inventive. We kind of became, Peace Corps with better food. So we attracted all this talent from around the country and around the world, and we saw our startup ecosystem really grow. Then we kind of started to regress to the mean from about 2015 on. Then COVID hit and just kind of, froze everything. Crime became a problem. And now what's happening, we're in this kind of fourth wave. I should say before COVID, we had all of our exits. So we had the first wave exits, but then we had our first unicorn. But then coming out of COVID, now what we're seeing is a lot more institutional support for the startup world. We're seeing Tulane University, for example, leaning in. We're seeing a lot more venture capital firms that are locally oriented coming up. We're seeing the state getting involved with something called LA.io.
Mm.
And so, arguably, we're in this fourth wave now where the ecosystem is getting more institutionally stable. And I think we'll slowly, keep growing, particularly as we can always offer this arbitrage versus those other places in terms of cost, in terms of better incentives. And that's how we fight back against their critical mass.
So what is like most of your work right now at Greater New Orleans Inc.? Like what does it involve? Because I mean, because there's a lot of things we're talking
Yeah.
about here.
Yeah, so somebody asked me, asked me that today. I said, what do you do every day? So I pulled out my calendar for today, and I said, well, let's see how it goes. So I started off with a 8 a.m. Phone conversation with the state about our homeless strategy going forward and how we're going to comply with the president's new EO and provide the spectrum of services. Then I had to go in for a doctor's appointment. Then I had a breakfast with the head of Louisiana.io that we talked about, Josh Flegg. Then I had to bring the wife's car into the shop. Then I had lunch with an employee who wants to get much more involved in policy work. So we talked about her future. Then I just met with somebody about applying to OpenAI for a grant to begin to teach AI skills to our local companies. Then I had a couple of phone calls. Then I had this incredibly prestigious podcast with this gentleman named Ben Weiss. And so that was exciting, this Legend series. And then after that, I've got another radio interview, 2 more meetings, and then an event for a friend who passed away. And then we're going to go hear music. And so, this job has evolved from being a traditional economic development job, which means you're marketing to businesses, to ones where we now say that anything that can impact a company's decision to risk its capital or a family's decision to raise their family is something that we can play in. So we are involved again in issues as picayune or as small as local infrastructure to as big as we're now trying to write or create national legislation, federal legislation to create a new type of insurance to insure all homeowners, not just for flood like you and I purchased in Florida and Louisiana, but also fire like they're dealing with in California, earthquake, and other perils in a way that makes having homeowners insurance affordable for all Americans. So we have a lot of trouble coloring in the lines, and it makes the days full, but it also makes this work a hell of a lot of fun.
So, I mean, what are you trying to accomplish most right now, I would say? Like, I mean, you just got off of, I mean, you did the Super Bowl Czar stuff. That was a lot of work. You did a lot for the city and just for the area in general. Then what's kind of the next big thing on top of mind right now, Michael?
Well, so I think I'll answer it in two ways. In the immediate, the next big project we're working on is getting this new Louisiana International Terminal built about 20 miles from here, which will be about a $2 to $3 billion facility that will allow New Orleans, which was founded because of the port 300 years ago, to take the new Neo post-Panamax vessels. Just right now, the biggest ships we can take are about 8,000 or 9,000 containers, and we now need to be able to take 14,000. So we're building a new terminal. That's important because even though we're trying to get in front of AI, we're doing a lot of work in drones. We were founded because of international trade, and so we can never abandon that. So that's the next kind of big immediate thing. But the way that I'm going to judge success of our effort and the state over time, I think, is population. There are a lot of ways that people talk about economic development. They talk about business growth. They talk about revenue. They talk about GDP. But to me, the real final tally of how a community is doing is people voting with their feet. Right. We've seen in Louisiana over the last decade about a 3% population decline. In our region, about a 2%. And in Orleans Parish, about a 10%, which has largely been driven by affordability issues. To me, we have to address that by creating more job opportunity, better affordability, dealing with quality of life stuff, so that people want to come here and raise their families and stay here. So that's going to be the ultimate measure of success, Ben, if I'm kind of telling you really what I think about it and what I pray about at night.
But why do this all through a company and the structure you have? Why not run for office? You were involved with Governor Landry. You helped him out. you get another government type role? Why do this as a company?
So that's a great question. I'll start with the specific and then I'll go out big.
Okay.
Reason why I don't run for office is, I've got a wife and family that I like, and so that kind of mitigates against running for office. The sacrifices are just enormous, unfortunately, and so that's for personal reasons is difficult. But professionally, what I've discovered about a GNO Inc. and we're an NGO, we're a 501c3 and C6, is that a nonprofit like ours, working with the private sector, provides two things that you do not get from the public sector, from elected officials, and makes us critical. One is that we take a long-term view. We're not operating on 4-year election cycles. If you look at any community that's turned itself around, like I was in Detroit last week, that happened in large part because of the 12 years of Mayor Dugan, who's now running for governor, as well as the investment from Dan Gilbert. And that brings it to the other part is that, I'm sorry, so what we provide is a long-term perspective, and we provide continuity, which I guess is adjacent to long-term perspective, because I've been here for 17 years. That's longer than any political term. The other thing is that the business community provides resources, strategy, philanthropy, economic churn, or economic resources that make it a critical partner. So any place that has turned itself around, think about Miami in the 80s, what happened there. I think that was like Jeb Bush and the Beacon Council. That was a critical partner there. Or New York City after 9/11, it was a partnership for New York City. Every community that is successful does so because it has a nonprofit community and a for-profit community that are working in this triad with elected officials. So, look, being mayor is the most important job. It's the most impactful job. But that mayor will not be successful and the community will not be successful over time if there's not a nonprofit working as a partner like we did for the Super Bowl, and dealing with long-term issues, and then a business community to provide the backbone. So it all kind of works together.
Yeah, makes sense. Do you see yourself replicating this model for other states?
I would love to. I've spoken with folks about it. Now there are regional organizations like GNO Inc. Around the country. I think what makes us a little bit different is that most of these regional organizations stick to a more strict definition of economic development. They're doing marketing to businesses. We do a lot of policy work, a lot of workforce work, a lot of work in economic mobility, and we do it at the state and national level. And then we even get involved in quality of life issues like public safety, or the Super Bowl, I guess you could argue, is a tourism issue. So we're broader than most organizations. And I think it's useful because all of these elements that go into a community being successful, I think, can benefit from having this objective and able third party, which is what we try to provide. On the other hand, there's some communities that just have better, more robust traditional institutions. So they don't need an organization like a GNO Inc. that's filling in the gaps because they just don't have, honestly, as many gaps as Louisiana unfortunately has. So to some degree, we're idiosyncratic to the challenges of this wonderful place.
Yeah. So just the last question I have, like, what does the next 5 to 10 years look like for you right now, Michael? Like, what would you be happy with? I mean, you mentioned the airport that you're working on, but what does that look like?
I'm going to paraphrase a line from my partner, Walt Leger, who works at New Orleans and company runs it. It's the tourism organization. He said that if we're successful in 5 to 10 years, tourism will be 2 to 3 times as big as it is now, but will only be the 4th or 5th biggest industry. So I think growth combined with diversification is the economic secret. I can see that diversification coming in a lot of ways. A lot of stuff is happening with decarbonized future energy, as well as what's happening with space and aerospace out at Michoud, the new port, or stuff happening in tech. And then we have to address some of our affordability issues, which is why we're involved in insurance. our quality of life issues. So we're going to keep working on flooding issues, which again are big for you in Florida. And then finally, I think we have to change the brand, tell a story about New Orleans that's a little bit broader than what it is now. If you think about Florida, Miami's done a good job changing its image from the 80s. Orlando has done a really good job at becoming more than just Disney World. Now it's this tech center. We need to take New Orleans, which has these amazing brand equities of food, music, and culture, and make it about that plus a great place to do business. And so the way I describe it, the wife gets angry with me sometimes, but I think it's pretty evocative, is that we have to go from being the city that people like to date to being the place that people want to marry.
It's a great line. Yeah.
Tell my wife.
Michael, well, thanks for coming on. I think it's really amazing what you've done in the area you are in. I mean, to be able to handle, the Super Bowl is a big ordeal, but then also to build more of an innovation ecosystem is so important, increase tourism, and you're attacking every angle you need to be to really make the city as great as it can be and the region. So I'm excited to see what's next, and thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for giving me the platform. I really appreciate it, and it's honor. It's a real honor, real humbling to be able to do this because it's a place that deserves it. The feedback is great, the teamwork is wonderful, and the days are never boring.